everybody? Looks like we're gonna get started here in just a few minutes. It's almost 6, and I'm just waiting for our last few painters to arrive. Make sure you've got all your supplies you'd like ready there, any snacks or beverages. And definitely feel free to have your favorite music playing in the background there. Your favorite painting jams, and we'll get started pretty soon. All right. I will be right back. Okay. I'm at 4 people right now, so almost 72. Okay. All right. All right. We'll get started in just a minute here. Just waiting on a couple more painters to arrive, but what's up, everybody? How are y'all doing tonight? I'm excited y'all are here to paint with me. We're gonna have a good time. And again, while we're waiting for our last few painters to arrive, just kind of make sure you've got, your favorite drink next to you there, or a cup of liquid inspiration. And, if you want your favorite snack next to you, get some snacks as well. This is a painting party, so set that painting party atmosphere the way you like it. And again, like I said, you can have your favorite music playing lightly in the background. As long as you can hear me good, you can have those jams as loud as you want, so you can shake it while you make it tonight, all right? So we'll get started in just a bit. I'll let y'all kind of gather your things. And while everyone's kind of gathering stuff, just to get you a little familiar with Zoom, if you've never used Zoom before. By the way, I can't hear anybody. I can't hear you talking, but I can see your screens if you enabled them. And there's an open chat. So anytime you have questions throughout the process tonight, I'll be able to live answer those questions for you anytime. So after each step throughout the painting process, I will be checking the chat and kind of seeing what questions you have. But anytime you just want to say hello, say I'm having a great time, whatever you want to leave me, any kind of commentary, you could say you got paint on your forehead, whatever's going on with me. Feel free to leave me any comments as we go tonight. It looks like everyone's almost here. We'll give everyone just another minute here. I think we got 1 or 2 more painters on the way. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. Is Tyler, and up here they've given me a sweet nickname. They like to call me the Paint Doctor. So why do they call me the Paint Doctor? Because I can help you fix anything. So if you have any questions tonight, you have a little uh-oh moment, a little happy accident, maybe you're working away and then your allergies kick in, you're like, achoo, oh no. Whatever it is, you just leave me a little comment and I will walk you through how we can fix anything. So I will be here to make sure we leave with happy paintings tonight. All right, again, my name is Tyler. Got a little name tag here if you forget my name. So what we're gonna be doing tonight, we've got our fun little Mystic Mountain painting. What we wanna do before we start jumping into this is just making sure we've got all the right supplies. And that way, if you forgot to grab something or you need something, this will give you a little extra time to grab those supplies. So let's go over our supplies real quick, and then we can dive into this painting. And so first off, let's make sure we've all got a cup of paint water. Make sure you got a nice little cup of paint water there. You can use whatever you've got. Perfect. I always recycle stuff, or like pickle jars are great, that kind of thing. And make sure if you do have a beverage with you tonight or some liquid inspiration, make sure that you don't mistake your paint water for your beverage. You'd be surprised, but we actually see that happen a lot at our studio. So watch what you're drinking, and if you happen to drink paint water, usually acrylic paint's non-toxic, so you'll be all right, okay? It's just not going to taste good, and it's not fermented, so get no benefits. So watch what you're drinking tonight, all right? And then we all should have some paper towels or a paint rag, or you can even rip up an old t-shirt, whatever you got on hand there to clean your brush on. So make sure you got some paper towels there. And then for tonight, we'll probably only need two brushes, all right? So, if you have more brushes than that, by all means, you could have as many as you want. But I'm just gonna use two to keep it simple. So we'll want one big brush, one big flat brush there. And we like to name our brushes up here at Painting with a Twist. So it just makes it a little more fun, and then you can remember who your brush is. And you can name them something else, but we're gonna call the big one up here, Big Mama. Say, what's up, girl? Big Mama's gonna be working it tonight. And then our little brush, our little bitty brush for details, you'll want like a small round brush, or it could be a small flat brush, but just like a medium round or medium small brush for the other part. This little detail brush, let's call this one Little Mama. Say, hey, Little Mama. So that'll make it easy. We got Big Mama, we got Little Mama. Those are our brushes tonight, unless you're calling them something else. Now, a good rule of thumb with those brushes is you want to think of your brushes as like happy little fish. Where do fish like to hang out? They like to hang out under the sea. So go ahead and drop all of your brushes in your cup of water. You want to keep them under the sea when you're not using them. If you leave them on the table, you're just going to look down and have a very sad, dry, crusty, dead fish, buddy. You don't want that. So keep it in that water when you're not using it. That's the safe bet there. And then we all should have, some painting clothes on that you don't mind getting a little paint on. I've got a little apron. If you got an apron, that works great, But any old t-shirt, whatever you got, or just something you don't mind getting a little paint splatter on. So make sure you got some painting clothes. And then we'll also want to make sure we've got some colors tonight. And we'll go ahead and review that. Now, the cool thing is with a lot of these, you can be really playful with your colors. You really don't have to have all the same colors as me. And if you ever have any questions on how to mix a certain color or get a certain color with what you have on hand there, I can help you out. You just leave me questions in that chat. But like I said, we can kind of play around with this, and you don't have to have as many colors as me. The main two colors you need is black and white. Black and white. So here's my paint palette here. I've got black, I've got white, and then you'll want a yellow, if only you had was black, white, and blue, and you could have lighter blue highlights or lighter blue highlights in the mountains there. So we could definitely play around with things as needed there. So use what colors you have on hand. And let's say you just want to change the color up. You can change it up. This is your painting. So Flavor Flav that canvas however you want, all right? So if you decide you want to put green highlights instead of pinks and purples in that water, then that's what you do, all right? So again, we'll want a nice little paint palette there. And I usually put it on a paper plate, but you could also use whatever you got on hand. You could use a little coffee lid. At home, I like to recycle my coffee lids and reuse those. They make awesome paint palettes. So just a little thought there. And then I usually like to have an extra plate next to me, or a piece of paper, a ripped up little, scratch piece of cardboard, anything like that. Reason why is you might want a little extra plate for mixing colors. Also, it's a great place to test things out. So if you're, feeling a little nervous, or you want to practice drawing a mountain on your extra plate there, or just practice a brush stroke, or see what a color is going to look like, it's really nice to have a tester sheet, is what I call it, next to you there. Just an extra piece of paper, plate, piece of cardboard, just some scrap, something you're going to throw away. So that's a little suggestion you might not have, so grab that. And then besides that, and we don't need this right away, and if you don't have chalk, don't worry. but I'm going to be using some chalk tonight, just some white chalk, like you would on a chalkboard. If you don't have chalk, don't worry. We can also use the paint to create the same effect there. The chalk is just going to be used to draw out some details, but we can also do this lightly with paint. So I'll show you both methods, but if you have some on hand, it can be helpful. All right, so that's going to be it for the supplies. And then we can jump into our painting tonight, all right? So make sure you got everything you need. Again, if you want a beverage, have a little beverage. If you want some music playing in the background, get some of your favorite tunes going so you can shake it while you make it tonight, all right? Because that's what it's all about. So I hope you're ready to smush a little paint around, because that's all we're going to do tonight. We're just going to smush that paint real good. And then we'll see what happens. So I hope you're down for that. And like I said, I will be walking you through this painting step by step. So if you have never painted before, no worries. I've got dry. So if you have a little happy accident, let it dry, and then you can paint right over anything. That's what I love about it, all right? And can everyone hear me good, by the way? Can everyone hear me good? Thumbs up if you can hear me. Or if your screen's turned off, you can leave me a little comment. Just say yes or thumbs up, you know, that kind of thing. Just want to make sure everyone can hear me good. Awesome. All right. If I ever cut out or you miss an instruction or your internet cuts out for just a split second or anything like that, again, just let me know and I will catch you up if you miss a step there. All right, Sean. I think we are ready to get this painting party started. And like I said, this is a painting party. That's why Painting with a Twist, we say this is fun art, not fine art. All right. So let that phrase simmer on your brain tonight and know that's what it's all about. Just getting lost in the smushing process. It's very relaxing, very zen. So let yourself just go to your happy place as we get lost in that smushing process. And like I said, number one is to have fun with this. Okay. So let's go ahead and get this party started. We're going to be using our biggest brush for a good portion of this to start that background. So let's get Big Mama out. Remember, that's what we're calling her tonight. Say, what's up, girl? What's up? Tap it off on the side a little bit just to take off that moisture. And then give it a little tap on your paper towel. A little tap on the paper towel. It's definitely okay to have a little moisture on your brush. You just don't want water ever dripping from the brush. Okay, and then before you start painting, we got to loosen up those wrists a little bit. You got to be loosey-goosey when you paint, so spin your wrists for me. Get them a little bit awake tonight. Wake them up a little bit. Shake it out a little bit. Or do your best wacky inflatable arm 2 minute impersonation. That's how you want to paint tonight, all right? So embrace the motion of the ocean, all right? And then before you paint all over that surface, and by the way, you don't have to paint on canvas. You can paint on whatever you have, cardboard, rocks, wine glasses, whatever you got on hand, all right? So be creative with that. But whatever you're painting on tonight, touch that surface and say hello. It's, polite to introduce yourself. Say, I'm going to make you beautiful tonight. I promise. I promise. Or you can just say, I'm going to paint your face, all right? I have a small point to this. I'm not just being weird, although I like to do that. I wanted you to notice the texture of your surface. These surfaces are going to act like a dry sponge. It's going to absorb your paint very quickly. So if you've never painted before, remember the golden rule, which is mo paint, mo better, all right? Don't forget that rule. It's very important. I'm not kidding at all. So we're going to start off, and we're going to dunk our brush in red. So whatever red you've got here, I've kind of got this pinkish to work. And then dunk a corner of the brush. You don't need a lot, but we're going to put just a little bit of white. See, I've got a little bit of white on the corner there. Lots of red, a little bit of white. It's going to turn kind of pinkish here. All right. Now, make sure your canvas is going long ways, or what I call landscape, as opposed to as opposed to the tall way, which would be called portrait mode. So make sure you're going landscape, unless you want to change it up there. And my canvas is about, it's a 16 by 20 canvas is the size. Yours can be a different size. So just think about breaking it up into thirds. So I want to go about a third of the way, or maybe a hand width up from the bottom here. So if I made like a letter C with my hand here, or use my whole hand width, if you have small hands, you could be like 1 letter L or letter C, 2, 3. That's about thirds there. Or like I said, you can use a hand width. So I'm gonna either go 1 hand width up from the bottom, or 1 big letter L up from the bottom, right side, and then just go boop, put a little blob there. Just go boop. Doesn't matter which side of the brush you use. Use those sound effects. Sound effects always help, all right? That's all I'm saying. Once you got your little dot there, we're just gonna pull some streaky brush strokes, and I want you to pull them across about as far as your hand and about as wide as your hand here. So I'm just gonna pull some streaky brush strokes, let that red and white just mix together. Some brush strokes can be longer, some a little shorter. And again, you want it about as wide as your hand and at least as long as your hand, but a little longer is okay too. This is gonna add some nice brightness to the sky. So make a nice little funky shape here. The edges can be all frayed. And again, make sure you're using lots of paint. The more paint you have on that brush, the easier it's gonna glide, the easier it's gonna mix and blend and that kind of thing. If you don't have enough paint on the brush, it does not blend very well. And usually you'll see these little textures appearing, like little white dots in the paint. And that texture is just your surface telling you it's a very thirsty canvas. So you gotta load up that brush. Again, make your brush very saucy. When you're painting, it should always kind of feel like butter on hot toast or cream cheese on a bagel, all right? You know what I'm saying. So don't be afraid to use your paint like Paul Dean used to use butter, if you know what I'm talking about. Very good. If you have questions, remember, just type them in the chat and I will be happy to answer those anytime you need it, all right? Or if you're ever having trouble seeing something, I can always bring my canvas up a little closer and that kind of thing. Otherwise, we're going to keep smushing that paint real good. I want you to smush it like you mean it, all right? And once we've got our nice little stripe of pink there, let's add a little bit more red and white to the brush. I'm going to reload my brush with red and a little touch of white on the corner there. And let's leave a little gap of space, about maybe 1 width of your brush, or you could say 1 knuckle above where you just were. And I'm just going to pull another little stripe coming out, just about 1 brush stroke, just 1 messy brush stroke, about as long as the last one, but it's not as wide. And you got a little gap there, little gap. So just a messy little brush stroke. Mo messy, mo better. And again, make sure it's just gliding for you. Make sure it's melting. If you have to press down hard at all with that brush, you need more paint on that brush. That's why painting's so relaxing, because you don't ever have to press down hard and you're just kind of coasting, you know? So let that brush just be very relaxing and always have plenty of paint on there. Works so much better the more paint you use. Very good, very good. Any questions so far? All right, my twisters, well done, well done. All right. So as we're moving and grooving here, we do the background a little faster than the other parts because you got to catch the paint before it's too dry to blend those colors together. So we're going to go ahead and start blending this pink into some blue. When we blend these colors, you want to make sure they overlap, and you'll probably get rid of, about half of this pink because half of it's going to turn into blues. And along the edge where the blue and pink mix, it's going to turn purple. So we're going to have some fun getting some different little flavors in our sky here. So what I'm going to do with my brush here, I'm going to go ahead and just wipe it off a little bit. You can use the edge of your plate there. You can wipe it off on your napkin, your table, if you've got paper on your table, or your neighbor, whatever's closest. If you got people painting with you, all I'm saying is painting on your neighbor is encouraged. I'm just kidding. I'll try not to get you in too much trouble, all right? But, if you catch your neighbor really focused, you can always give them a little face painting, a little arm tattoo. It's a good surprise for later. So once you've wiped off your brush, let's give it a quick rinse. The best way to clean that brush, you want to dunk it in the bottom of your cup, paint little circles on the bottom of the cup. Just make sure you make contact with the bottom there. Make a little whirlpool. Make Big Mama do a little dance on the bottom of that cup. And then tap it off again. I'll show you something that happens when you rinse that brush sometimes. Sometimes you'll see a little bit, I'm gonna hold my brush really close. You'll see a little paint that likes to hang out at the base of the brush where the bristles meet the metal. If that's ever happened, you just give it a good wipe off and then rinse it a second time, and then you'll be good to go. So sometimes a little paint likes to get stuck there. And that's just a trick to get that last little bit out. Okay. Now, once we've got our brush a little bit clean, we're gonna dunk the whole brush now in dark blue. Lots of dark blue on there. Again, make it a saucy brush. You gotta make it saucy. Lots of paint, cover up those bristles. And then once I've got blue on my whole brush, it's dark blue there. And if your blue's brighter, you don't have to add much white, but I'm gonna add a little bit of white, just like I did with the pink, or the red and white, I mean. So this time, blue with just a little hint of white there, just a little hint. Now I like to let these colors mostly mix on the canvas, but I'm just gonna barely mix them on my plate. So all I'm gonna do here is go to my plate, little empty spot, and I'm just gonna very lightly tap my brush a little bit like this, and roll it a little bit, and just let it kind of very lightly mix, just very lightly mix. Doesn't have to mix a lot, just a little bit. We mostly will mix on the canvas because then you get more flavors that way, more shades of blue. So all we're gonna do here is we're gonna go in between our pink and on the outside of it. We're not gonna go below it though, not below it, but everywhere else. So I'm gonna go in between these two, overlap them a little bit here. And I'm gonna go around the edges of these as well, but I'm not gonna go below the pink down here. Again, make sure you have lots of paint on the brush. The more paint you have, the easier those colors are gonna mix and blend. And if your paint started to get a little dry, I know mine did a little bit here, I'm gonna show you some good little tricks to blend these edges a little bit better. But make sure you're overlapping the edges of your pink. You want that blue and that pink to mix and mingle and become friends with each other. They wanna get to know each other. So let those colors mix along the edge and keep globbing on that paint. When you come up here above your little pink stripe, the little one, you can bring this up pretty high. You can leave a little space at the top of your canvas empty, but don't be afraid to bring this up pretty high. Pretty high. We're wrapping around all the edges of our pink. You can see the lines on here are very choppy. No line has to end in the same spot there. It can be very mixy, very messy. I want you to express yourselves on that background tonight. That's what it's all about. If you got music playing while you're painting, I encourage you to shake it while you make it. You know what I'm saying? You want to wiggle while you work. Just express yourselves on that canvas tonight. That's what it's all about. Art is very expressive. So get lost in those brush strokes and get in touch with that inner artist tonight. Now, my edges aren't as blendy as I would like, where the pink and blue are mixing there. So I want to show you a fantastic trick for blending this as we're working here. And so what I like to do is I just rinse the brush before anything is too dry. I rinse my brush a little bit. Again, you paint circles on the bottom of the cup. I tap my brush a little bit dry, but it's good if it has a little bit of moisture. You just don't want water dripping off the brush, but your brush can be damp. And you take your damp brush and you brush right along this edge where the blue and the pink are touching. And this can blend those edges really, really good if the paint's still wet. Let's say the paint wasn't still wet and it already started to get a little dry. Well, the other trick for blending this would then be, again, rinse the brush, get red and white. And I'm just kind of showing you both here so you can see it all. You get red and white just like before. And you start in your pink area. And you could brush out then into the blue area to blend it. So try a little back and forth game. I always say kind of relate painting to like a ping pong match, you know? It's a little give and take, a little back and forth. And so you get those blended edges the way you like. So try both methods. Like I said, if the paint's clean or wet, you just take a clean brush, no paint on it, and dust it along the edge where the blue and pink meet. And that will make them a little more fuzzy, a little more faded, a little more blendy. Or rinse the brush, get fresh pink, and brush from the pink area out into the blue and overlap the edges of that blue so that you get some purples along that edge. But remember, no two skies are going to be the same. It's like when you go outside and you look up at the sky every day, it's expressing itself in a different way. So, let your sky have its own little personality to it tonight. Doesn't have to look like mine at all. Everyone's painting is going to be unique. That's what's cool about this. Let yours have its own little style, its own little personality there. Nothing wrong with that. All right. If you have questions, let me know. Let me know. I'm going to check the chat real quick here and see if anyone has any questions so far. I'm going to tilt my canvas a little bit so you can see mine a little easier there. There we go. We'll spend a few more minutes there, and then I will show you the next step to get that sky filled in. Pretty soon, we're just going to fill in the rest of our sky, and then we're going to come back and we're going to get it dry and start adding some more on top. But a lot of this canvas is actually about to turn black. And then we'll be chalking and drawing out our fun little mountains and moons on top as we go. All right, look at the chat here. Okay, I don't see any questions so far. Awesome. Very good, y'all. Way to smush that paint like you mean it. So now that we've got the pinks and they're kind of turning a little purple and then blue after that, we want to now blend blue into black. And so that's going to be the next phase of this. So once you've got pink and blue mixing together, nice and mixy along that edge there, we want to Okay, now, like I said, we're going to be blending blue into black. But just in case any of this blue along here got a little bit dry, we need to rehydrate it real quick. So I will again dunk my brush in a healthy amount of blue there, dark blue, nice and saucy. Let me even get a little more. It looks like my bristles are showing. You don't want any bristles showing. That's too many bristles. You got to cover them up good, nice and saucy. And then I'll get a little bit of white on the corner of the brush, just like before. Lightly tap it so those mix. And I'm going to go back to my blue areas and rehydrate them. I'm just going to get a little more paint on top. So I'm just going to go right over top of them again. Or you can even bring this out just a little further. Because keep in mind, when you're blending colors, you're going to take away about half of it. So it doesn't hurt to add a little bit more blue, knowing that you're going to overlap this with black. And about half of that blue is going to turn into that transition where the blue is fading into that black, and you'll kind of get this kind of blue-gray in between and that kind of thing. So I'm going to bring my blue out just a little bit further, just a little bit. And mostly to, again, like I was saying, rehydrate the canvas. That's the idea there. Once you've got this blue rehydrated, you don't have to clean off your brush, and you can start adding black. Now, the black is always, your strongest color. It's going to take over those other colors very quickly and overpower them. So my suggestion is to start with a little bit of black to blend it into your blue, and then you can gradually add more. So keep your brush dirty. Keep it a dirty brush, all right? I'm not cleaning off my light blue there. I'm keeping the blue mixture, and I'm just going to add a little bit of black to my brush. A little bit of black. Just a little bit of black to the corner. So here's what my brush looks like. Hold it up real close there. Blue, I kept all my blue, added a little bit of black to the corner there. And you can play around with your brush strokes on this next part. It looks like on the example painting online, they kind of started doing more like swirling brush strokes, which is a fun way to kind of make it feel like there's maybe a little bit of some misty clouds in the distance, that kind of thing. So you can play around with it. I'm going to do little swirls like this, just swirling, or you can keep doing big horizontal brush strokes. Either one looks cool, but I'm going to start along the edge of my blue, and I'm going to blend my blue and black now. So again, I've got blue on my brush still, and I'm just adding black to it. Now I'm blending into it. So I start on the outer edges of my blue, and then I swirl into it. And the more you brush into it, the more it starts getting fuzzy and faded there. And we're going to fill in the rest of our sky this way. Just keep adding more black as you go. Once you get that fade of blue and black together, you can just keep grabbing black. That's all you need. And we're just going to keep filling in the rest of our sky this way. Once we get the sky, the whole bottom part is also just going to be black, but we don't have to blend that into anything, which is kind of nice. So that's what we're going to work on next here. As you go, let me know if you have questions. Remember, leave them in that chat for me. And again, keep using plenty of paints on that brush. It really works better the more you have on there. Sometimes when you're brushing, I'll show you what it kind of looks like. I'm going to show it close. So I didn't have enough paint on my brush here. And you can see in the corner where it looks kind of speckled, you can see little white dots appearing in the paint. That's always your canvas just telling you it's very thirsty canvas. So load it up. That's why I always encourage you to make that brush very saucy. Like I said, that canvas is very absorbent. They're like dry sponges. So the more paint you have, the easier it blends. And that's always the hardest thing about painting, is just kind of knowing how much paint to use, because it really works better when you have a lot. If you're not using enough paint, it's kind of like putting a drop of water on a water slide and then trying to go down that water slide. Ouch. It's going to be very painful. So don't do that. And like I said, you can actually add a little bit of water if you ever need to. If you're ever trying to stretch your paints or anything like that, you can actually add a little bit of water to the paint anytime you need to. Just a little bit, and you can stir it in. This will stretch it and thin it a little bit, but sometimes it's helpful. So just a little thought as you're going. Now you can see I've got my sky filled in. Don't have to go as fast as me. We all work at a different pace here, but everything else is going to just turn black. So I'm not going to worry about the way I do my brush strokes anymore. I'll probably just do big horizontal brush strokes back and forth there. But the rest of this, like I said, is just going to turn black. So I will just load up my brush, nice and saucy, glob it on and smooth it out. And we'll fill in the rest of that canvas. We're going to have to get it pretty dry after this. So keep globbing on that black. We use a lot of black paint in this particular painting, so don't be afraid to reload anytime you need to. And remember, right along the bottom of my pink here, I'm not blending nothing. I'm not blending nothing. Because our mountains are going to go over that. We don't have to worry about blending that. Not at all. Glob it on and smooth it out. Since we're just kind of filling in a big area at this point, this is a great time when you can really express yourselves on that canvas. If you've got music playing in the background, shake it while you make it. Wiggle while you work, all right? Get lost in the smushing process. That's what it's all about. Painting is very therapeutic. If you don't believe me, you'll probably notice a fun little thing happen. As you're painting, pretty soon, your mind starts clearing of everything you're thinking about because you just get so focused on smushing that paint around. It's very, very therapeutic. So kind of let yourself get lost in those brush strokes. That's what it's all about. Keep globbing on that paint and smoothing it out. If you are painting on canvas tonight, feel free to paint the edges of your canvas. I've got black wrapping around the side here. You can see how that just frames the edge there a little bit. So don't be afraid to, like I said, wrap it around the sides as you go. If you're already done with filling in that background, that's another little fun step. And that's called a gallery wrap. When you paint the edges, just kind of frames it. It's kind of fun. And if you don't have a little lip on the edge of what you're painting there, don't worry about it. Just an optional thing there as we go. Just globbing it on and smoothing it out here. Very good, very good. I'm really excited y'all are here painting with me tonight. Y'all picked a great painting. This one's really fun. I love this painting. I'm a big fan of those kind of spacey paintings. I love nighttime scenes like this. They're really fun. And I love how whimsical it is with that huge crescent moon in the distance. It's really neat. And mountains are always really, really fun to paint. So we're going to have a good time when we get to those nice little mountain peaks there. But if you have any questions so far, let me know. Once we've got this all filled in here, and here's what mine's looking like, then we will have to get these nice and dry before we can really do much else. A lot of this painting really happens after that background's kind of set. Then we can really start building on it. And you can kind of think of painting as a layering process. That's how it works. Nice thing about acrylic paint is it dries so fast that you can continue layering on top pretty quickly. So we'll have little breaks every once in a while. The break, again, is just to get it dry so that we can layer more on top. So think of painting as like baking a cake. building a house, lasagna, onions, you get the idea, anything with layers. So we have to dry it in between layers. That way our colors don't over mix. And that way we can have a really nice bright moon in the background instead of our moon turning like a funky gray color like it would right now if we tried to do it. So as soon as you finish your background, we're gonna have a little dry time, or up here at Painting with a Twist, if you're refilling your drinks and that kind of thing, we call it drink and dry time. So we'll have a little drink and dry time. If you have a hair dryer on hand, hair dryers can work really fabulously for drying your painting very quickly. So if you have a hair dryer on hand, use that. You can use the high speed, just make sure you move it. Don't leave it in one spot so it doesn't like kind of bubble the paint or something like that. But that's really easy way to dry it. If you don't have a hair dryer, because that'll dry it just really fast is all. It takes like 30 seconds or a minute underneath that hair dryer and it's dry. If you don't have a hair dryer, don't worry. Just let it dry naturally and it dries pretty fast on its own. Otherwise, you can just grab an extra plate, or if you have a little paper fan or something, or just a piece of cardboard there, you can just fan it like so. Flap those wings, and we'll get it a little bit dry, All right, so if you have questions on that background, I'm gonna check the chat right now. Otherwise, we're gonna have a little 5-minute break here to get these nice and dry. So anytime we take a break, I will probably mute my mic so you won't be able to hear me. So don't let that confuse you or make you think like your sound is not working. I'm gonna be muting my mic for just a moment, just for this to get nice and dry for us. So that's what we're gonna be doing next. Just a little dry break, All right. So again, just get your final little touches on your background there. And once you're happy with that background, remember we're gonna cover up about 75% or more of that background with all our cool little details. So don't worry about it too much. But make sure you get it dry. We're gonna have a little dry break here for 5 minutes. So we'll start up it again at about 6:42 or 43-ish, somewhere around there, 6:45 latest. So this is a time to dry it and finish any touches. Most importantly, get it dry. If you need a refill your drinks and snacks, or you can give us little artist shout outs in our chat box there. If you're having a good time, feel free to give us a little post on our Facebook, Instagram, and if you're looking for us, it's Twist Colorado Springs. Or if you post anything, you can also hashtag Twist at Home and we'll find you. We'd love to see your work. So we'll have a little 5-minute break here. My mic will be muted. If you need me, leave a little comment in the chat there. Otherwise, I will be back in 5 minutes here while we get these nice and dry. Good job on those backgrounds, Twisters. Give yourselves a hand. Hey everybody, we're starting, a couple more minutes or so. I'm gonna give us a few more minutes to get them dry. But one more little thing while we're taking a break here. If you have chalk, like chalkboard chalk, we can use this for our next step. If you don't even worry about it. But if you do have it, it is a fun little tool to use for painting, and I'll show you how we can use that. Otherwise, don't even worry about it. Just make sure you get it dry. We do want our surface pretty much 100% dry. So we're gonna spend a few more minutes. And like I said, we'll start about maybe like 6:44, 6:45-ish. I just wanna make sure everyone has a chance to dry them. If you're wondering, is my canvas dry? If it doesn't look shiny or glossy, you're probably okay. And if you want, you can even touch it and give it spirit fingers or jazzed hands and check it out. So I will be right back. I'm gonna mute my mic again while we're drying those. And if you need help or have questions, leave it for me in the chat. What's up, everybody? I am back. So again, we just want to make sure that canvas is dry. If it doesn't look dry, like I said, just give it some spirit. I mean, if it looks dry, I'm sorry, it looks dry and you're wondering, is this dry? You can always lightly tap it, give it some spirit fingers or jazz hands and check it out, all right? And just to kind of figure out if yours is dry, if you don't mind, leave me a little comment and just be like, dry, thumbs up, yep, whatever you want to say. But if you're dry and you're ready to start, leave me a little comment in the chat. And that way I don't get ahead of anybody before we start, you know. But use those hair dryers, keep flapping those wings, and that kind of thing. But once it's dry, just leave me a little comment. And once everyone's left a comment, we'll start painting again and that kind of thing. And like I said, if you're waiting, get some more liquid inspiration, refill your snacks, anything you need there, get cozy, and then we'll jump back into it. And just again, one more reminder, if you didn't hear me before, if you have chalk, like even sidewalk chalk works really good. Chalk you would use on like a chalkboard or sidewalk chalk, anything like that, can be helpful for the next part, but not necessary. So just optional if you want. Otherwise, we will jump back into it in just a little bit here. But like I said, just leave me a little comment in the chat once it's dry, and I will get us going. Awesome. I see we got one person's is dry. Fantastic. Thank you. All right. Very good. See, everyone's almost there. Cool, cool. Oop. There we go. Awesome. I'm just going to adjust my setup a little bit while we're getting those dry. Again, leave me a little comment. If yours is dry, feel free to leave me a little comment. Oh yeah, thumbs up works good too. Perfect. Sweet. Looks like almost everyone's is dry here. This is always the part that takes the longest, you know, just getting it dry, and then we'll start layering on top. Awesome. And as we go tonight, remember, leave me any feedback you have for me. I'm always open. This is a new thing we're doing, these virtual classes. I'm really excited about them. It's really cool that we can bring this to you in your home and in the convenience of your home. So it's pretty sweet. So I'm really excited we're doing these. This is, I think this is only our 4th virtual class to do. So we're really new to this, really having a lot of fun with it. And it's all live from our studio, which is pretty cool. So any feedback you have for us, leave us little comments. And also, if you're ever needing more art supplies, we can help you out with that. So check that out. We do have these new kits. They're called Twist at Home kits. If you've not seen our Twist at Home kits, it's awesome because you get brushes, you get a paint palette, you get paints, you get a canvas, you get instructions for a painting if you choose to do one from that list, and all kinds of stuff there. So definitely check those out if you're ever needing more paint supplies. Since, you know, Hobby Lobby and Michael's aren't open right now, we can hook you up, all right? And the cool thing is with the supplies, if you do order a Twist at Home kit, we put it on the curbside for you. So you let us know when you're here and it's got a curbside pickup. You don't even have to walk inside. We pop it out there for you. So it's a pretty sweet deal. So if you're ever running low on supplies, that's my little spiel for you there. Otherwise, I think we're almost ready here. Again, if you haven't already left a comment that it's dry, leave me a little comment, say yep, or dry, or I'm ready, or whatever you want to say there, just so I don't get too ahead of anybody. Otherwise, I think we're ready. We are dry. Awesome. Just got that from Jill. Thank you, Jill. Cool, cool. And if you're looking for the chat, it's in the bottom of your screen there. I'll even say hello. That way you can find it if you're looking for me. Cool. Awesome. Okay. So, dry here, dry. Awesome. Cool, cool, cool. I think everyone is dry. So, if you're still drying, no worries. I'll go ahead and just start talking about the next part while we're getting them dry there, because I think it looks like everyone's about dry. All right, it's time to officially party on Twisters. Woo! So let me talk about a few things and then we'll jump into this. What we're gonna do here first off is we have to put our big crescent moon on there. Let me hold this up. So we got to get that big crescent moon on there. If you look at the painting, again, remember painting's a layering process. If you look at this, the crescent moon is in the background, and then the clouds are going to overlap your moon a little bit, and then the mountains are going to overlap the moon and the clouds. So that's kind of the layering we have to do, and then all the little water ripples and highlights in the water, that's going to be kind of towards the end there because it's coming in front of those nice mountains, peaks coming out of the water. So that gives you a little rough idea of kind of the layering process. So to kind of figure out some of these shapes here, we can draw it out with chalk, or we can use a technique that's called dry brushing, okay? It's exactly like it sounds, where you barely have any paint on the brush. That way, it's a lot easier to paint over it and make adjustments as needed. So I'll show you two little techniques, and then we'll get into this. If you are using chalk, a piece of chalk or sidewalk chalk there, the cool thing about the chalk is if you're drawing and, all right, cool, we're good to go. If you're drawing your moon and you're like, achoo, oh no, what happened to my moon? That's not a moon. That's okay. If you're using chalk, you can erase it, which is kind of cool. So what you would do is you would take a paper towel, you'd wrap it around your index finger. I like to dunk it in a little bit of water. So I would take my paint water cup, I'd put a little water on that, tap it off a little bit. And if I wanted to erase the chalk, it's like it is on a chalkboard. So I would take my damp paper towel around my fingertip and I would just lightly dust the canvas there. And voila, it disappears. So it's a beautiful thing. So if you're playing around with chalk on canvas, that's just a fun little thing. Otherwise, we will just dry brush this in. So for that, if you don't have chalk, we'll want to use our smallest brush. So make sure you get your smallest brush out. Remember, we're calling this one Little Mama. Say, hey, Little Mama. It's her time to work it tonight. So we'll get our little brush out, tap it on the side of your cup, tap it on your paper towel, and we'll want to get a little bit of white on our brush. And we're going to do a technique called dry brushing. So again, if you don't have chalk, this is the next best thing to do there. So you'll take your brush, you'll get some white on there, and that's way too much paint. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to wipe it all off. I'm going to go, just kidding. I don't want that. And I'm going to scrape it off on the edge of my plate there. Or you can use your napkin, wipe it off good there. Just put a little white and then wipe it all off. Be like, just kidding. Don't want that. Don't want that. And again, this technique is called dry brushing. If you look at my brush here, you can actually see the bristles of the brush because there's barely any paint on there. Barely any paint. So that's called dry brushing. Okay, so when you draw your moon, keep in mind, this moon is very whimsical. You can see it's huge. It's a big moon. So we'll have a lot of fun with it. Don't worry about having like a perfect circle, because it's, again, very whimsical. You can have kind of like that Tim Burton moon that can have a little bit of movement to it. Nothing wrong with that. So I will suggest when you draw your moon is to lean back. So if you lean back and you use kind of the full shoulder movement, the whole motion of the ocean there, this is going to help you get a much nicer curve and feel the shape of that moon. So again, you want to kind of be arm's length when you do this. And your moon can be bigger than mine, smaller than mine. But the best way to do it is start with a letter C. So I'm leaning back real far here. And I'm going to make a big letter C in my sky. Notice it's before I even get there, notice it's a sleepy letter C. So it's kind of like, you can see it's leaning a little bit there. So it's a sleepy letter C. So I'm going to start leaning back here and getting that full arm motion there. I'm going to make my big letter C in about the middle of the sky there. So I start and I go, whoop. And I barely have any paints on my brush here, so it's easy to erase if needed there. Getting the full motion here. Curving around. Remember, it's a sleepy letter C. And start there. Just really use your whole arm motion. And you can see how I barely have any paint on my brush, so it looks like chalk. See, it looks like chalk there. It's very faded. So just a little paint. But I am just leaning back when I do that, just leaning back. And then once you draw your letter C, your sleepy letter C, then you just go to the outside of it and you trace around it. So I'll make mine a little brighter so you can see it, but you start right along the outside here. Again, lean back so you get that nice little curve there, but then go on the other side here and just trace right next to it. It gets a little wider the further out you go there. And then it's like a little road. It just curves right back into your letter C there. A little road. Like I said, this is very whimsical. You can always make it a little bigger if you want, a little wider. Start a little smaller. When you do this, make sure you don't forget to breathe. All right, don't forget to breathe, okay? You'd be surprised how many people start doing details and they just hold their breath right before they go, you know? So don't pass out on me. It's actually happened before. So keep breathing when you're making those fun little details like that. If you are painting with friends at home there, family at home, maybe you're looking over your neighbor painting next to you and maybe they've got a tongue sticking out. They're getting real focused there. If you notice a tongue sticking out to the side of the mouth or maybe some cool veins pulsing in their forehead, you've got a good opportunity for a paint tattoo. They won't notice. So carpe diem. Once we got our moon, we can start filling it in. And remember, it can be very whimsical. If there's a part of your moon you don't like, easily we can cover it up with our mountains, which is really, really nice. That's what I love about the layering process. So don't worry too much about that, all right? So once you've got it, if your brush is pretty small, you probably don't want to fill it in with a little tiny brush there. That might take too long. So I would recommend going back to your big brush to fill it in. Remember, this brush has been a dirty brush, so we got to get it clean. Make sure you rinse off all the blue and purples that you had on that brush. Give it a good rinse. Sometimes you got to rinse it twice. Sometimes you got to rinse it, wipe it off on your paper towel, and give it a second rinse there. And tap it dry. Once you are ready to fill in your moon, I'm going to start with just white. I'm going to fill it in with white, and then we're going to add yellow or any color of your choice. You might want to make it a blue moon. You might want to make it a pink moon. Who knows? Maybe you want to make it green. It's up to you. This is your painting at the end of the night, so be as creative as you want. But once you got your moon, load up your big brush, nice and saucy there, and you can start filling it in. Don't be afraid to use your little brush along the edges if that's easier to fill it in that way. You can outline it thicker and then fill it in with your big brush. Whatever works for you. I will say, if you're using a flat brush like me, a big flat brush, there's a fun little trick here you can do to get thinner brush strokes. You can take your flat brush, you can mash it down like a little pancake, flatten it out like a pancake, a flapjack. Just press those bristles together, kind of gel up the hair of the brush. It's actually going to help it flow much better. So look a little bit ahead when you are tracing around your moon. But once it's outlined, it is a lot easier to fill it in because you're not worried about the edges anymore. So that's a little suggestion as you go. Again, if you have questions, let me know. And remember, everyone's moon is going to be a little different. Yours might be bigger than mine. It might be smaller than mine. If you don't like the crescent moon, you can turn this into a full moon. If your crescent moon got a little weird, you can always go into a full circle and just make it a big full moon, which would also look very cool. So, you know, play around with it. Remember, this is very whimsical and it's your painting at the end of the night. So make it your own. Be as creative as you want. Be as creative as you want. If you decide you need to put an alien spacecraft in your sky later on, go for it. Like I said, it's your painting. So once I've got it outlined here, I don't have to worry about the edges anymore. I can just glob on that white and fill it in. Fill it in. Nice and saucy. You got to have a good amount of paint to cover up those dark colors in the background there. So really glob it on good. Smooth it out. Smooth it out. I want you to get in touch with your inner artist tonight. That's what it's all about. Remember, there's no wrong way to smush that paint around. We're all gonna have our own style without realizing it, which is really neat. It's kind of like, you know, let's think about some of the classics there, like Van Gogh. You know, everyone knows Van Gogh, everyone knows Starry Night. He did these really big, bold brush strokes, which were very thick and textured. But Van Gogh is not going to paint the same way as, you know, Picasso and vice versa. So, you know, all of them could paint the same picture, but they would all look very different, have their own unique touch. So, you know, let yours have its own little personality, its own unique little touch. That's the cool thing about this. But remember, if you have questions, please leave them for me in the chat, and I'm happy to help you out. That's why they call me the Paint Doctor. Paint Doctor's in the house. No insurance, no copay needed, all right? What we're gonna do is once we've got our moon filled in with white, lots of mayo on that canvas there, then we wanna come back in here while that white paint is a little bit wet, and we're gonna start putting in some nice yellow flavor. We wanna flavor that moon. We wanna make that little crescent moon into a light Parmesan, you know? So once you've got it filled in, and again, you don't have to use yellow. You can use whatever you have on hand. It could be a light blue, it could be a light pink, it could be a light purple, you know, whatever you're feeling. But we'll get white again. So I'll dunk my whole brush in white, or sometimes I call it mayo. So get lots of mayonnaise on that brush. Lots of white. And then dunk a corner of your brush in some mustard, in some yellow there. So I've got mayo, I've got mustard on my brush. It's a deli sandwich on a brush. And then we'll fill in our moon. And when you fill it in with the white and yellow, don't be afraid to leave little gaps of white here and there. It could be very messy. It doesn't have to be like a perfect fill in there. It's kind of fun to let some parts be a little more white, some parts a little more yellow, and just kind of let those colors mix very lightly there. So you can even leave the edges of your moon more white if that's more fun, and it'll give it like a little glow. So that's all we're gonna do is give it a little bit of that yellowy tone there. Very light yellow. Again, just yellow and white. Messy little brush strokes, very lightly filling it in. That moon can have a lot of texture, nothing wrong with that. Texture is fun. And the cool thing is with acrylics, they're kind of like liquid plastic. So if you have any texture, even if you've got thick brush strokes, when they dry, you can feel that texture, which is kind of neat. It gives it like a kind of a 3D effect almost there. Remember to keep breathing as you're filling that in. Keep breathing. Messy little brush strokes. Let that moon have some texture. If you fill in your moon and it all just turns yellow and you want to see some other little shades in there, you can always grab a little extra white and just do some messy little brush strokes with some white and that kind of thing. And I want to tilt mine up a little closer here so you can kind of see some parts are a little more yellow, some parts a little more white. So you can play around with that. Remember to lean back if you're ever trying to adjust any of those edges of your moon there. Lean back when you do that. Really helps a lot. You want to get the full motion of the ocean there. If you know what I'm saying. Very good. Once we've got our moon on here, we'll get to start getting into our little happy clouds and our fun little mountain peaks there. But I'll give you all a few more minutes on that moon. If you have questions on your moon, please let me know. And keep in mind, you're gonna cover up a few parts of that moon. Some of those mountains are gonna come in front of your moon. So if there's an edge that's bothering you, or it's feeling a little weird, just let it be. And you can purposefully, you know, put that mountain right over top of it, right over top of it. And be careful not to overbrush your painting. Don't overstroke it because, you know, eventually, if you have a lot of paint on there, it'll start just pulling the paint back up off the canvas. So if that starts happening, that just means you got a lot of paint on there. You want to be lighter with your brush strokes, and you probably, if you're just going real smooth, you can probably smooth out that little spot there if you're going real light, if you did start scooping paint off the canvas. So just a little tip as we're going here. A little tip. otherwise, that's it for our little crescent moon. So once I'm done with the crescent moon, I will take my big brush, Big Mama, and I will let her take a little dip in the pool. She's been working hard. She's earned that break. So we'll let little Big Mama take a dip in the pool for a bit. And we'll be switching back to our little brush. Back to little Mama. Now, we're going to be painting some clouds next. Remember, it was like the crescent moon, and then remember the clouds are going to go a little bit in front of our moon. Doesn't have to be dry for this, which is cool. And then our mountain peaks are going to then come in front of the moon and the clouds. So that's those layers. And each layer gives our painting more depth and kind of pushes the whole painting into perspective and gives it that fun feel. So what we want to get into next are the happy little clouds. Clouds are really fun. And what I'm going to do while you're finishing up there, I'm going to go ahead and demo. I'm going to do a little demo of some clouds on my extra canvas here. And I'm going to do them a little bit bigger just so you can see them a little closer there. And then we'll get into clouds. Clouds are really, really fun. I really like painting clouds. There's not a lot of clouds on this painting. There's really only 3 on the online example one. But you can have more or less. That's up to you. But we're going to have a good time with these happy little clouds. Clouds are, like I said, a lot of fun to paint. And they're very weird. So when you're painting clouds, I want you to keep in 3 key points. I want you to make sure those clouds are lumpy. You want them bumpy. And most importantly, you want to make those clouds funky, all right? Clouds are very strange. They do what they want. And next time you're outside, after painting clouds, you'll have a whole new appreciation. You're going to look up at that sky and be like, wow, those clouds are weird. They just do what they want, don't they? So let's talk about them. And I will, like I said, I'll just show you a couple clouds on my extra canvas, and then we'll get into it from there, all right? So, and that way, if you're still working, no rush, no rush. So for my clouds here, and I'll show you what colors to mix, and I'll show you all this stuff. Right now, don't worry about colors or anything. I just want to show you what they look like, most importantly, and then we'll go from there. So, because there's actually a couple different colors in the clouds. So I'm going to paint some just kind of dark blue-gray clouds here, just so you can see them, and then we'll go from there. And like I said, I'll show you what colors to mix and all that good stuff. So this is just my demo canvas. So when you make a cloud, and especially the clouds on this painting tonight, we're going to start off with just a horizontal line. And this kind of helps you decide how big or long of a cloud you're going to have. And it also kind of like, helps you dictate where it's going to be. And again, the size of that cloud helps you keep a little shape to it. So you start with the line wherever you want your cloud, and you'll make a little horizontal line. If you want like a medium cloud, do a medium line. If you want a really big cloud, you make a really long line. If you want a little bitty cloud, you just put a little line, little bitty line. But each cloud starts with a horizontal line. And then from there, and again, like I said, I'll show you what colors and everything in just a minute. Just wanted to kind of show you what it looks like. Once you've got your horizontal line, you start swirling your brush. And you want to make funky little lumps on top of this line. I like to think of it as like a lumpy staircase. So what I do is I've got my horizontal line here. I start swirling. I do like a big lump in the middle, and I start doing smaller little swirls on the sides here. Swirl, swirl, swirl. And then I've got a happy little cloud. And that's how it works for all of these. Again, you have a horizontal line, start doing swirls on top of that line. You can mess up your line a little bit and just try to make each little lump different, not all the same size. Some bigger, some smaller. They especially get smaller on the sides and bigger in the middle usually. So that's kind of how they usually work there. Now, the cool thing about these clouds is they've got a lot of color in them. So once we've kind of got them on there, you can add highlights to them. You can add shadows to them. What would that look like? Well, for the highlight, you'd get more white, and you'd go back to these little lumps, and you'd swoosh white on top. Just quick little swooshes of white like that. I'm going to get a little more so you can see it a little better. You get a little white, and you just do a quick little arch, a little swoop to see a little mixture happen against that wet paint and give it a subtle little highlight. You see that brightens up the top of that cloud. Vice versa. Maybe you want a shadow underneath your cloud. You can get a little bit of black and blue, and you can come back underneath it and just kind of zigzag underneath it a little bit and give it a deeper little shadow like so. So there's lots of little fun things we can do to give those clouds little shadows, little highlights, and little splashes of color. And if you look at the clouds Here we go. On the online example there, they actually do have even other colors in them. They have little hints of purple if you want. Even yellow could go on top of that white if you want it to. So that's kind of cool. And then notice the clouds are going in front of the moon. So that's how I'm going to be playing it. So that's how we're going to make our happy little clouds there. So I'll start walking you through it on the actual example next. I just kind of wanted you to see how those happen a little bit bigger. And then we'll go to our canvas now and start playing. So we want to use our small brush for this, your medium small brush, little mama. So get little mama out. Say, hey, little mama. Rinse it off. Tap it a little dry there. And for this next part, this is where you might either want to mix your colors on an extra plate. So if you've got an extra plate near you, that could be great for making your cloud color. So I'll let you extra plate, one big scoop of white, and then I'll get a scoop of blue and a little scoop of black, just a tiny one. Then I'll stir all three together. If you want your clouds to be kind of purpley, you could even add a little bit of red. So I put a scoop of white down, blue, I put a little red and black. I'm going to stir those together. Or you can just do white, blue, and black. So white, blue, and black, or white, blue, black, and red. Or you could even just do white, black, and red. That would also give you a purpley gray there. So what color are you going for? Kind of like a medium blue gray or purpley gray. And it can be a little bit lighter because we can add a shadow if we need to there. But that's what I'm going to start with. And like I said, if you want it more purpley, just add a little red. That'll get you there. If it doesn't look gray, add a little bit more black. If it looks too gray, add a little bit more blue or white into that, and that will make it a little less gray. And as long as you like your base color, that's all that matters. Here is, I'm going to hold mine up a little closer there if y'all can kind of see that. Try to get it without the glare. And again, it's kind of like a blue-gray. Maybe there's a hint of purple in there. Medium blue-gray. Okay. Now again, make sure you're using plenty of paints on the brush, nice and saucy, because again, it works better when you have more paint on that brush there. So what I'm going to recommend once you've got your paint color mixed up there, if you're using a round brush like me, a little round brush, here's the best way to load your brush. You want to lay it down in that color like it's taking a little sleepy nap, and you want to spin the brush. Roll it, roll it, roll it in the paint. That's going to evenly coat the brush and reshape your brush. If little mama's having a bad hair day, that's going to fix that. So roll the paint brush in the paint every time you load it with paint. And then what we'll do here is we'll start making those clouds. I'm going to make my first cloud. It's going to be real big. And again, I start a line. And if you want to practice a cloud on your extra little tester sheet, you can do that. That's another reason why we have those. So, oh yeah. Oh yes, can I go back over that? The screen froze. So sorry the screen froze, Jill. I apologize. And when you say go back over that, did you mean the clouds or the color mixture? Both. Okay, great. Yeah, perfect. So for the color, I've got a scoop of white, a scoop of blue, and a little bit of black. And I mix all three together to make like a medium blue-gray, like a medium blue-gray. Or if you want it to be like a purple gray, you could do white with a little bit of blue, red, and a tiny bit of black would work as well. So either white, black, and blue, or white, black, blue, and a little red. And that'll give you either a blue-gray or a purpley gray. So whichever color you are feeling more, either one looks great. And then once we have a gray, what we do is we're going to start with a horizontal line. I'm going to get this a little closer. I'm going to tilt it so we can see it good there. So your clouds start with just a horizontal line, however long you want the cloud. And it doesn't have to be as long as mine. But once you've got a horizontal line like this, you start swirling. And you want to do big lumps in the middle and smaller lumps as you work your way down the sides there. And the bottom of your cloud can stay pretty much flat for the most part, but don't be afraid to overlap it a little bit there. And this is going to just help first get that shape of the cloud. And the idea is to try to make each lump a little different. Make some lumps bigger, some lumps smaller. Try to make them all the same size there. That's the idea there. Clouds are weird. So once you have your purpley gray, you make a horizontal line, and then you swirl on top of that line. Big lumps in the middle, smaller lumps on the sides. Think of it as like a lumpy, bumpy, funky staircase. I hope that helps, Jill. If you have any questions, let me know. If any of that didn't make sense, I can go over it again. So again, we'll start horizontal lines, lumps on top, lumps on top. The hardest thing about clouds, honestly, is being weird and random with it. Our brains a lot of times like to put things in like patterns and kind of compartmentalize things. So the hardest thing sometimes is making that cloud weird, because sometimes our brains don't want to make things random. Randomness can feel a little strange. So be random, be weird with it. Funky little clouds. Mo funky, mo better, right? You want those clouds to have their own little personality. Each one's like its own little afro floating in the sky. Once we've got our first little cloud, I'm going to go ahead and make 2 more little clouds. And then pretty soon we want to start adding little shadows and highlights to these, because you want to do the shadows and highlights before it's too dry. Otherwise, it just doesn't mix as good as you want. So I'm going to do 2 more little clouds. I'm going to do a little guy underneath this one, just a little bit to the right of it. You don't have to put it in the same place as me. I'm going to just make a little horizontal line. This is my smallest cloud, and then I'll swirl on top of that line. Big swirls in the middle, small ones on the sides. Don't press down very hard. Let that brush do the work for you. And I'll have 1 medium cloud up here on the right side, but put them wherever you want. You don't have to copy me. Same thing though. I start again with a horizontal line, cutting into my moon a little bit there. Your moon does not have to be dry. It's actually kind of cool if you pick up a little bit of the yellow from your moon when you do this. It'll just kind of feel like some of that's reflecting onto that moon, and I will even emphasize that more in a little bit, and I'll show you how. But same thing, horizontal line. Once you got that horizontal line, I just start swirling. Big lumps in the middle, small little swirls on the sides. Just swirl, swirl, swirl. Shake it while you make it. That's where you got to wiggle a little bit while you work that brush. You better make that brush work tonight. Very good. Happy little clouds, y'all. Remember, they're all different. Each one's got its own little personality. The weirder they are, the better, I promise. And then we want to get little shadows on each cloud before they're too dry, and little highlights. For the shadow, you just get a little bit more blue and black on your brush. Or if you're using the purple, you could do red, blue, and a little bit of black. And you make a darker color of what you're using. And what you do is you go to the base of these, and you just go back over that little horizontal line, just very lightly brush a darker brush stroke at the base of that cloud. Very messy. That's what I'm doing right now, just horizontal little brush strokes along the base of these clouds to give them a fun little shadow there. And again, I just made a darker version of my color. So just a little more blue and black, or a little more red, blue, and black. You want to do this a little bit before that paint gets too dry, so that it gets a little bit blended along the bottom edge of your cloud there. And if any of those clouds started getting dry, you can always come back with your base color and swirl it on top again. I'll let y'all catch up to that, and then we will get into the highlights of those fun little clouds. The shadow color again is just black and blue, just a little darker version of what you were using, or black, blue, and red. And if it's too bold, if you don't like your shadow, come back with your base color, and again, just kind of overlap that shadow a little bit. Just smudge along the edge there, and that can make it feel a little more mixed in, a little more fuzzy, and not so harsh. You can even swirl your shadow a little bit if you want to feel a little more fluffy underneath. You can swirl it a little bit and let it mix into, again, the base color of your cloud. That's a good thing. Let those colors mix a bit. Nothing wrong with that. And as we're going here, let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to help you out. That's what I'm here for. That's the nice thing about doing these live is as you're going, you can ask me anything. And I won't leave you hanging, I promise. Awesome. Happy little clouds, y'all. You got this. Be one with the cloud, one with the brush. You are that cloud tonight. You are that brush. I wonder if anyone here painting tonight has painted with me before. If you have painted with me before, oh yeah, I see some hands up. Yes, that is awesome. It's good to see y'all again. Thank y'all for painting with me again. That's fantastic. Very cool. Well, if you like painting with the Paint Doctor, I'm going to be the exclusive artist doing all of the virtual classes while we're doing these. So yeah, I look forward to seeing y'all again. We're going to be doing a lot of cool paintings coming up. Oh, sweet. I just got your comment. We took a class in the studio with you too. That's awesome. Third time. That's great. I love that. Very cool. Well, welcome back, y'all. Good to see you again. Smushing that paint real good. Sweet. All right, everyone. If you're ready, we're going to add highlights on the clouds. Again, you want to kind of catch it before it's super dry, you know, because we want that to mix a little bit. If you need to, you can rehydrate the tops of your clouds with a little bit of that base color again, as needed there. I'm going to just make sure mine still are wet a little bit. And what you'll want to do for the highlight, just wipe off your brush. You can wipe your brush off on your napkin, table, neighbor, whatever's closest. Doesn't have to be a clean brush. And we'll dunk it in white. Let's get a good amount of white. Lots of mayo. Lots of white. And it's not going to stay a pure white, but we're going to take that white and we're going to go to the tops of our clouds and just swoosh. Do little arches, little arches. Swirl that brush while you go there. And the messier you make this, the better. It doesn't have to be too perfect, too precise. You want it to kind of feel like a marble countertop there. Let me hold my cloud up real close. Look how messy that little guy is. He can be so messy. More messy, more bad. So just take white, little white swoops on the tops of those clouds. If your paint already dried a little bit and you feel like this isn't mixing at all, you can always come back with your base color again and just kind of swirl the middle of the cloud and let it catch some of that white, and that'll give you that nice little fade that you're looking for there. And you might pick up a little bit of yellow from your moon. That's okay. That's a good thing. If you don't pick up yellow, I'm going to be adding some in anyways. So there we go. You can see now I've got these messy little highlights. And there's shadows on the bottom of my clouds. Now they've got lots of little things happening. So it's a little brighter on top, a little darker underneath, and the middle of the cloud is just that base color. So that's what we're working with there. More messy, more better. You got this. Now this next step is optional. After you've got a shadow on the bottom of your cloud, you've got little highlights swirling over the tops. Then if you want to, there's little splashes of color in there. So on the online example, I can see little hints of pink and then even yellow. So if you want the pink, I would swirl that very messily into the middle of your cloud. You don't want to do too much there, but just a little bit. And for that, you might want to rinse the brush a little bit, and you could get red and a little bit of white, and you don't need much of this if you are going to do this. It's really subtle. Honestly, it's pretty hard to see most of it. I'm going to hold this up closer. And you probably can't even see it on there, but there is little hints, just tiny little hints of pink in the middle of some of those clouds. So if you want a little flavor, you want to flavor it a little bit more, you can get a little bit of pink and just kind of very lightly swirl it and let it just kind of very lightly mix You don't have to do it through the whole cloud. It could just be kind of like little hints. Or if it's especially the side of the clouds over here where it's kind of in the pink zone a little bit, that'd be a spot where you really might want a little pink because it's kind of like that sky is just reflecting a little bit into those and giving them little, you know, little hints of pink in there or purple and that kind of thing. But let it just kind of mix with the wet paint. It doesn't have to be very bold. It can be just very subtle little hints of color in there. I'm gonna hold mine up close so you can see my little hints of pink. It's not a lot, but it's something. Just a little something, something. A little something, something. If you want it. If you want it. And then also, if you want it, optional, you could add a little bit of white and yellow to the top of your clouds as well. And for that, you would do the same thing, little swooping arches. If you decide to do that, the thing you have to be careful about is if your cloud's super duper wet, then yellow is gonna mix with the blue underneath, and it's actually gonna make your cloud turn green. So if you don't want a green cloud, be very careful here. If you want to put a little hints of that though, you want to rinse your brush really good. You get white and yellow on your brush. You kind of mix up a little white and yellow, mix a little mayo and mustard. And I'm not going to do a lot of this, but any part of your cloud that's kind of facing the moon there a little bit, you can take a little bit of this white and yellow mixture, and especially the taller parts of your clouds, you can just do little arches on the tops of these, little swoops, and add little hints of that yellow and white mixture. Basically make a very, very light, very pale yellow. Like a light Parmesan cheese there. And anywhere it's kind of near the moon, if you want to get a little hints of yellow in there, you don't have to do every little cloud puff, just like taller ones is kind of fun. But I'll do a few more just so you can kind of see it. And that's all I'm doing, just little hints of yellow in there. Not a lot, not a lot. If any of this feels like you need to mix it a little more, you can always take a clean brush and just very lightly swirl the areas you're trying to blend a little bit with a clean brush. No paint on the brush. But the cool thing about these clouds is they can be very expressive. They don't have to be very blended and that kind of thing. So I'll hold these up again closer. You can see I've got little hints of yellow in there, maybe some little hints of pinks, but they're very subtle. Overall, you're mostly seeing those blue grays. Overall, mostly blue-gray. And that's it for the clouds. So I'll give us another minute or two on those clouds. Let me know if you have questions on those clouds. Otherwise, pretty soon we want to get into the mountains. I want to make sure we have plenty of time for those mountains because it looks like it's almost 7:30, and we'll probably want to start those mountains at about 7:30. That'll give us a good half hour to work on the mountains. So, and the mountains are really, really fun. Really, really fun. Same thing with the highlights at the bottom. They're very messy, very loosey-goosey. So we'll get lost in that process next. Nothing has to be dry for the mountains, which is nice. So keep that in mind there. But if you have questions on the clouds, let me know. Otherwise, I will show you those mountains in about one more minute here, and we'll get into that part. That part's gonna be really fun. The mountains are gonna make a huge difference on our canvas tonight. So any questions, leave them for me. I'm gonna check the comments right now and see what's going on out there. Otherwise, I hope y'all are having fun getting lost in the smushing process, because that's what it's all about. Very good. Awesome. Way to work that brush, my twisters. Being one with the cloud tonight. Awesome. Okie dokie. Okie dokie, artichokes. I say we start working on the mountains. Mountains are really, really fun. Just like the clouds there, where I did a little demo, I'm going to use my extra canvas here, and I'm going to do another little demo on mountains, and then we'll start working on them. They're really fun. So the important thing, and actually the wonderful thing I should say too about mountains, is you do not need any straight lines. Isn't that fantastic? No straight lines needed, or as I call them, sober lines, all right? So if you're drinking wine, it's all right. And if you drink a lot of coffee, like me, and you're a little jittery today, you can use those jitters to your advantage when you make mountains. And again, you know, we live in Colorado, so what are the mountains here? They call them the Rocky Mountains for a reason. They don't call them a perfectly straight triangular mountains. So we want to emphasize that rockiness. So let me show you how those mountains work here. And I'm just going to show you first what not to do, and then I'll show you what to do. And that's how I like to play it. So one thing I noticed happening with mountains sometimes is, like I said, they're perfectly straight. So don't make your mountains like this. You don't want perfectly straight triangular mountains. If you do this, your mountains just look like a chevron pattern. Just doesn't look right. So we don't want that. So don't do that. That's a nope. All right, that's a nope. And then also, we don't want those mountains to turn into a heart monitor. Okay, I'll show you what that looks like. That's when your mountains. Let's do that over here. That's when your mountains are like beep, beep. Those mountains are barely surviving, okay? So don't do that. Don't do that. That's another one we don't want to do. So I'll exit that out. And now, let's talk about what we want to do with those mountains. Let me grab a little black paint. There we go. When you make mountains, they're like very wide, jittery triangles. So for the most part, like I said, they're very wide triangles. They're not really sharp angles like the heart monitor example I gave you there. So let's show you what they look like. When you make those mountains, you want to make jittery, tall triangles. So you're going jittering, shaking it while you make it. You can have several little triangles there. We'll have our really tall peak coming up, and then we start jittering down. You can have more little peaks in there and that kind of thing. But you can see how that looks a lot more natural than a straight line or a heart monitor, which also has a lot of straight lines. So these lines have to have a lot of movement, a lot of jitteriness, and a lot of rocks. So emphasize the rockiness when we get into these mountains here. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is go back to that canvas. Let's go ahead and get that ready. Now the mountains are going to be pure black when we draw them out. So the strange part is they're going to feel a little bit hard to see. So here's my little suggestion if you want to. And you can use your little brush to draw them out. That's probably the best bet, is the little guy. The little guy. So since drawing with black is going to be hard for y'all to see, I'm going to draw my mountains with like a very dark gray, and then I'll paint over that, okay? But if you have chalk, you could always use your chalk as well, it's fine. Be careful if anything's wet, because you don't want to go over that with the chalk and wet paints, you know. But otherwise, I'll use my brush. You can use black paint, or you can use a dark gray. But make sure you use your little brush. So I'm going to get a little scoop of white and a scoop of black and mix it together. I'm going to make a very, very dark gray. We don't want our mountains dark gray. We just want to be able to see them when we're drawing them. So that's going to be how we'll start. And I'll make mine a little brighter even, just so y'all can see it good. But yours doesn't have to be very bright. Okay? All right. So my first mountain peak, I'll go ahead and start there. He's going to be my tallest peak. He'll come a little bit in front of the other one. So I'm going to start with my tall peak on the right. It's going to cover up a little bit. Let me get the little example and show you. I'm going to start with my mountain peak on the right here. And you can see it's going to cover up some of the moon, some of the cloud, and that kind of thing. This mountain, if you look at the water, goes in front of this mountain in the distance here. So if you look at the bottom of it, it's a little lower than that one. So this mountain can come a little further down past the moon, a little further into the water if you want. So we're going to start there, our first jittery triangle peak. You can watch me first. If you're feeling nervous to make your mountain peak, just take a deep breath, all right? Or take a sip of some liquid courage, whatever gets you there. So here we go. And you can practice, like I said, on your table. That's a great place to start if you're feeling nervous, okay? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start right above this little line here, and you can overlap the pink in the sky and all that good stuff here. So I'm going to start in here. I'm going to start making my little jittery mountain peak here. I'm going to come up in front of this a little bit. I'm going to work my way back down now. Jittery, jittery, shaking it while I make it. I'm going to go a little bit in front of my moon there. And that's where I'm going to start. And it's up to you how much you want to cover up of your clouds and your moon and that kind of thing. You can always add more to these, but you can start them a little shorter and grow them as needed. Don't worry about the bottom of this yet. Don't worry about the bottom. It's gonna feel weird. Here, I'm gonna make mine a little brighter so y'all can hopefully see that better. Yours should be pretty dark, but hopefully you can see mine a little better now. Just a funky, funky, jittery, very rocky triangle here. Really emphasize those jitters. That's the idea here. That's the idea. Hold mine up a little closer. I know it's a little scary going in front of all that work we just did, but it's gonna give some cool depth to your painting. It's gonna really push a lot of that into perspective there. It's gonna look really neat. And then my other mountain's gonna go behind this one. So where that one ended, this one will be a little further up. And same thing here. I'll start a little further up and I start wiggling. And you can have more than one peak. This one's gonna have a couple peaks. So I'll make one little peak here, and then maybe another little peak coming up. Maybe even have another little peak. You know, you can have as many as you want. And then let him just dip off the page there. Just dip off the page. And I'm kind of going off the online examples, but your mountains can be very different. That's the cool thing. You can make them however you want. You can have more peaks than me, less peaks than me, anything you want. Now here's where it's gonna feel a little strange, but this will help us see it better. Once you've got your mountain peaks drawn, you're gonna switch to your big brush. We're gonna go back to Big Mama. We're gonna load up that brush with black paint, and we're just gonna fill in these with black paint. Now, you might catch a little bit of, again, if you're using that charcoal gray, you're gonna catch a little bit of that when you fill them in, and that's okay. If your moon is a little bit wet, of course it's gonna catch a little bit of that color too, and that's okay because it'll add natural highlights in there. But we're just filling these in. Just filling them in with black, and that's gonna help start covering up some of our moon and clouds and things like that. But we just use that charcoal gray to draw them so we can see them a little bit better. Because you can see how it's kind of hard to see it once I start filling it in with black. Again, I'll try to keep my mountain a little brighter on the edges just so you can see it. But yours should be a little more blended in. Yours shouldn't be as bright as mine. You shouldn't have this line I've got. But I just want y'all to be able to see where my mountain peaks are. So let yours be a little more mixed in than that. And like I said, we're just taking the big brush and we're filling these in all the way down to that water there. It's important that your mountains are wet with paint because we got to blend into these peaks with all their cool little highlights while they are wet. So make sure when you fill those in that you're really globbing on that paint good and smoothing it out. Just black paint and your big brush, Big Mama. Lots of paint. Remember, mo paint, mo better. Mo paint, mo better. It's a golden rule. Don't forget it. Don't forget it. If you cover up a lot of your clouds, that's okay. You can see I covered up my little cloud quite a bit. It's going to happen, but it gives it cool depth. It's going to push that whole painting into that perspective a little more. Nothing wrong with that. Remember, as you have questions, just leave little comments for me. I'd love to help you out. That's what the doctor's for. Paint Doctor is in the house. I'm going to check those comments out. Let me know if you have any questions. Awesome. Be one with those mountain peaks. Be the mountain peak. Feel that mountain peak. You can make sound effects as you go if that works for you, you know. I've heard sound effects help a lot. So use what works for you. Fill them in, lots of paint. Remember, we're going to mix into that wet paint. So make sure your mountain peaks are fairly wet so that we can really get those cool highlights happening. Lots of paint. Once we've got these filled in, we are going to start adding lots of these cool highlights from the moonlight. And that's going to give our mountains a lot more shape because right now they kind of just blend into our background. They're kind of faded. We can't see them too well yet. But when we add the highlights, it's going to give that shape to those mountains, which is really cool. It's going to kind of bring out the character of them. I love highlights. Highlights are always fun. They give that little something, something, that little extra that it needs, that little extra pop, that little, you know what I'm saying? Sweet. Very good. Very good. All right, we got a good 20 minutes of class left. So still got tons of time here, but I do want to make sure we get into those mountain highlights pretty soon. And that way we can get our final little fun highlights and details on here. Highlights, like I said, are going to be that part that really brings everything together and gives it that final little pop that it needs. I love highlights. They're so fun. So for the highlights and pretty much for the rest of our painting tonight, we're done with our Big Mama. She's been working it so hard. So let's let Big Mama take a break. Once you're done, you just wipe off your brush a little bit and drop it in that cup of water. And Big Mama gets to chill in the pool the rest of the evening tonight in her happy place. And then we'll switch to Little Mama for the rest of our painting tonight. Little Mama. Okay. So once we've got Little Mama out, remember, you want to rinse your Little Mama brush on the bottom of that cup, tap it a little bit dry. And we're going to start making fun little highlights. The highlights are really cool. They're going to make those mountains show up a lot better. And there's a lot of colors in the highlights. So we're going to add more colors as we go. But to start, let's just get white. It's not going to stay pure white. You know, it's going to turn a little bit gray on you, and that's totally fine. That's the idea. So if you ran out of white, reload, get some more white on there, and we'll start adding highlights. Now, the highlights are not just outlines. It's actually good to have lots of little gaps, because the more gaps you have, the more you're going to see little cracks happening. So don't make it too perfect here. You got to really wiggle while you work for those little cracks in the mountain there. And think about which side of the mountain's facing your moon. The side of the mountain that's facing the moon is going to be brighter because it's catching more of that light. The side of the mountain that's away from the moon isn't going to be as bright. So right now, I'm just going to focus my highlights on the sides of my mountains that are facing the moon here. When you make these cracks in the mountains, I want you to imagine yourself sliding down that mountain. You want to feel little slopes, little ramps, and you want to kind of be jittery when you make these little slopes and ramps. So I start along the edge here, and like I said, you got to leave little gaps as you go. I'm facing the side of my mountain that's closer to the moon, and first I'm just kind of jittering around that little edge there, leaving little gaps. But then I'm going to add new cracks coming in. So I come back up here and add another little jittery coming down. Maybe another small one here. If you start picking up too much black paint, wipe off the brush, get some fresh white, and start adding more of those little jitters. So little jittery ramps coming down, some longer, some shorter. I'm just focusing these on the side of my peak that's facing the moon here. And you can have a lot of these, just a couple. Remember, we're going to add more colors as we go there. But as you add these fun little cracks or little ramps coming down, it's going to give it a lot more shape and really show all that's happening in that mountain there. These cracks can touch each other. They can run into each other. Feel those cracks coming down. Remember, feel like you're sliding down your mountain or like there's little ramps, little ramps. Just right now, focus on the sides of your mountains that are facing the moon. They're facing the moon, then they're going to have lots of little cracks. They're going to be very bright, so really bright white. No blending. No blending's happening here. Just bumpy, bumpy. You got to shake it while you make it. Wiggle while you make those little cracks. Don't make them all the same. Some longer, some shorter. Be very jittery, very, very jittery. Little ramps coming down. Feel yourself sliding or skiing down that mountain. You can be like, whoosh, you know, feel it. Be a part of it. And it's up to you how, far down you want to bring those cracks. It's up to you how far. Now, when you're ready to start adding some color into these, I'm going to start adding some pinks, and then I'm going to add some blues. So once you've got all the kind of white and gray highlights, mostly on the sides facing the moon, you can have a few on the other sides too. Nothing wrong with that. Keep the white on your brush. Don't have to clean it. Just keep it a dirty brush. Then dunk it in red. So keep the white that's on there, dunk it in red, and lightly mix those. And I'm going to start pulling some red highlights coming down. Now the red highlights, I'm not going to put them everywhere. I'm going to put these mostly where you're seeing red in the sky. So on this mountain, since it's closer to that pink in the sky, I'm going to have a lot more pink on this side. But if you want to put a little pink over here, you can. And if you want to put a little pink under some of these highlights, you can. But for the most part, I'm going to focus it on this guy over here and start pulling little ramps, curving now the opposite way. So they're now curving the opposite way there. And we're getting these subtle little pinks in there. Subtle little pinks. And like I said, you can pull some of this underneath some of those other highlights and let it just fade into some of that black paint. That's kind of cool. Just adds more texture in there. It's all about texture here. You can be very funky with it. But these are like what I would call low light highlights. Low light. Just like it sounds, they're not as bright. They're a little further away from the brightness of that moon. So they're low light highlights because they're not as bright. And if you want a few pinks over here, don't be afraid to. You can splash a little bit. It's just fun to put a little flavor in there. And it's cool when it mixes with the black. It gives you kind of this pinkish gray or this kind of purpley gray there. And that's kind of fun. So it's up to you how much of that you want in your mountain peaks. You have a lot or a little bit. If you're like, I love pink, make it rain. Make it rain. If you're like, I don't like pink, then don't do much. Or you can leave it off, and we're going to add blue next. So I'm going to hold mine up a little closer here. I want you to see how messy my brush strokes are up close. They're very messy. More messy, more better. More messy, more better. Once I've got white and grays happening, I've got my reds and pinks. Now I'll get into blue. So for that, I will just wipe off my brush again. I don't even have to clean it. Don't even have to clean it. I'll dunk it in white. I'll dunk it in a little blue, and I'm going to mix the two together. And if you have a little red still on your brush, you might get a little hint of purple in there. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. So again, keep what's on your brush. Just wipe it off a little bit. Add a little bit of blue and a little bit of white. And then we're going to add some more highlights. So those blue ones are going to be on the left side of this mountain peak. And anywhere else that you need some flavor or color. So anywhere else you want to put a little bit of some blue highlights, they would look great. Especially focus them on the left side of this guy. But definitely put some anywhere you want. You could definitely add a few happening on this other mountain over here. Just random little brush strokes of blue. Let them just kind of blend into that wet paint a little bit. And you can add some more flavor if you need it. Just a little more flavor. Again, it's just like a little low light highlight here and there. It's all about texture here. And since our paint's wet, you know, a lot of these colors are just kind of lightly mixing together. No blending really, just letting everything kind of lightly smudge, lightly mix and that kind of thing. But we're not really blending nothing. And finally, before we go on to the highlights in the water there, if you want to, this is optional, and I wouldn't do a lot of this. We can add one more color to those mountains. And these are very colorful mountains. It's really fun to have all these little hints of color from the sky. So the last one would be our white and yellow mixture. So if we want to get a bit of some brighter yellowy highlights from that moon on the taller peaks on both mountains, we can do a little bit of this. And for this, I'll barely do it. So I'll just kind of put little hints of this brighter yellow-white on just a few of those taller peaks on both sides there where they're facing the moon. So rinse your brush really good for that. And again, we'll mix white, a scoop of white with a scoop of yellow, a little mayo, and a little mustard. Stir it up. Make a light pale yellow, mayo and mustard, white and yellow, and then just a few little highlights along the edge of your mountains that are facing the moon there. And don't do a lot of these, just a couple, just to kind of bring in a few little brighter areas. It's kind of fun, especially where it's real tall, it's real close. And not a lot though, not a lot, just a little bit. It doesn't have to stay yellow. It might turn kind of a yellowy gray. That's okay, that's a good thing. That'll look very nice, so don't be afraid of that. But that's all I'm gonna do, just little hints of yellow, and that's it. I'm done with my yellow, just a tiny bit. So I'm gonna hold my mountains up close while you get your final little touches there. And that way you can see them a little better. You can see the messiness of my brush strokes. You can hopefully see all those little colors happening. There's blues, there's grays, there's white, yellow, pink. You're seeing lots of flavor. But no two mountain peaks will be exactly the same. So let yours have its own personality. Remember, just like every mountain peak you see, they all are different. So jittery, jittery. You got this. You got this. I believe in you. One with the brush. one with the mountains tonight. And you can see how that's already made a big difference on our painting. The next part is the water highlights. These are so much fun. They give it, again, another little layer of depth on our painting, which looks really cool. So if you have questions on the mountain peaks, let me know. Otherwise, we're gonna jump into water highlights in just a minute. I wanna make sure we have plenty of time for our final touches, but there's not much left on our painting tonight, so that's kind of cool. We're at about, my clock here is saying about 7:50, so it's technically saying we got 10 minutes of class left, but I bet we might need a few extra minutes. So as needed, if we need a few extra, I'm down for that. So I want to make sure I have plenty of time to get those details the way you like them. Oh, and something fun to think about here is we are recording this whole class tonight. So if you ever need to go back and re-watch stuff, we're going to put this on our YouTube channel. It's only going to be there for y'all for a limited time. It'll only be there for a couple days and then it gets deleted. So if you do ever miss something or you want to come back and kind of play around with a step again and that kind of thing, this will be uploaded and up for just a few days. It'll be very limited, but that way if you missed a step or you want to kind of come back and revisit a step, you can do that. So that's kind of cool. Let's see here. All right. Let's get into those water highlights. I'm going to make sure we have enough time for them. So these are really, really fun. We want to start off with a bright color. We kind of want to work from our lighter colors slowly into our darker colors there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my little brush, rinse it off really good. We're going to use our little brush for the rest of our painting tonight. We're going to use Little Mama. So let's go ahead and give her a good rinse on the bottom of that cup. Paint little circles, make a little whirlpool, and tap it dry. And we're going to be using just white paint for the next part here to start. So just white. Remember when you load up your brush, lay it down like it's taking a little nap in that paint there, and then just lightly spin it, Just white, just white. And my plate's getting pretty messy over here. I bet y'all's is too. We've been making a lot of mixtures tonight, lots of mixtures. So what we're going to do first off with our white here is bring in the brightest highlights in the water. Now, since the moon is in the middle, or it's a little off-centered there, you know, but that's where the brightest area of the water is going to be, is where it's below the moon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start making little lines, and you can wiggle these lines while you go. They're horizontal lines, but they can have little ripples because it's water. So if it's a windy day, they can be a little more wiggly. So I'm going to start making little ripples here, start them smaller, and they can come up even in between these if you want to, make it feel like the water is going further down. And then you start wiggling bigger wiggles. Don't make your lines all the same. But as you work your way down, these should get bigger and bigger. So the further down I go, my wiggles get a little longer, but still some short ones, some medium ones, some really small ones, really long ones. Don't make them all the same length. That's what our brains like to do. So sometimes it's hard to be random. So the idea is just to make some lines longer, some shorter, and be funky with it. Feel that water. Be one with the water. Don't press down hard. Just let that brush glide. Little horizontal ripples coming out. And they can, like I said, go in between your mountains if you want them to. Up here, where they're real little, you can have a few little ripples going in between them. Like maybe that water's going off into the distance if you want it to. And that's up to you. That's up to you. This will be the brightest part of our water. If you're trying to make a thinner brush stroke, just lift off with your brush. The more you pull it away from the canvas, the thinner it gets. If you are used to using pens, pencils, tablets, stuff that requires a lot of pressure, hold your brush at arm's length further away from you, and you will have an easier time getting lighter brush strokes or thinner lines. If you hold your brush like you would a pen and you're holding it real close like that, it's going to have more of that effect of a thick brush stroke because it's hard to make a thin line when you're so close to that brush there. So that's my little tip when you're trying to make little bitty lines. Just dust it. Just caress that canvas. Don't press down hard. Just dust it. And that works really good. Once we've got our white highlights coming down the middle there, we want to start getting a few more colors. So after that, I'm going to dunk my brush in yellow. Dunk it in yellow next. And you don't have to clean off the white. You just add yellow on top of your white, and let's pull some yellow highlights coming down also the middle of the water here. These can be more spread out to break up the space a little bit, and they can come out even a little further. We want to get a little hints of yellow in here next. So white and yellow on my brush. And same thing, little ripply horizontal lines. And they can come out a little further if you'd like. If you look at mine, you can almost see like a triangle as it gets wider, you know, on the edges. If I drew a little line there, almost make a really wide triangle where my water's at. So that's the kind of shape you're looking for, ish, you know, as long as those ripples get a little wider at the bottom. Now this is fun. We don't have this color in our painting yet, but we've done white, we've done yellows. Let's say you want a little bit of a like kind of peachy or a orangey tone. I'm gonna keep white and yellow on my brush. I'm gonna add a little bit of red. So I've got mayo, I've got mustard, and I've got some ketchup. I'm gonna mix white, yellow, and red, make Ed's secret sauce. It kind of makes this peachy orange. So white, yellow, and red. If you want it, you don't have to do it, but it makes this like I call it coral or peachy orange sherbet. Ed's secret sauce. So white, yellow, and red if you want, and you can also add some of these colors into that water down here. Same spot, just breaking up the space. So spread these out even further. Spread them out even further. Some lines longer, some shorter. You can overlap one of your yellow lines or your white ones, that kind of thing. I'm going to show you mine up a little closer, so hopefully you can see my colors and the messiness of my brush strokes. So look how messy those brush strokes are. More messy, more better. Be the water, one with the water. Feel those ripples. Yours can be more wiggly. Maybe it's a windier day in your painting, you know, that's okay. That's okay. After that, I will rinse off the brush. Definitely want to rinse it off good. Now we're going to start spreading out our highlights in the water. So next, I'm going to rinse the brush, and I'm going to use white and red. So I'm going to get white and red and make a pink again. You want basically the same color in your sky here. So white and red, mix it up, make a light pink there, similar to the tone of your sky color. And we'll start adding some of this in the water. Now for these highlights, you want them to be a little more spread out. You can see in the middle of our water, they're real concentrated, real close together. We want these next ripples to be way more spread out. Now underneath over here, where the sky is really pink, you can have a few more, but otherwise you want them to be more spread out. So I'm gonna start on this side. I'm gonna do a few more brush strokes, go below your mountains there. I'll do a few little water ripples really underneath where it's really pink in the sky. And then from there, I'll just kind of spread them out. Do a few smaller ones here and there. Not a lot, just here and there. And some of these can come into the middle if you want to creep a few of them into the middle there. So just a few of these pink ripples on the left side here, especially underneath the sky where it's pink. Don't touch the bottom of your mountain yet. We'll add something there in just a minute. And then a few little scattered ones coming off of the group. If you want a few over here, feel free to put a few random little pink ripples. Not a lot, but you could put a few in this corner. Again, we want them a little more spread out on the sides. A little more spread out. That's pulling in that cool little color from the sky, reflecting down into the water there. So you can be real messy with that. Real messy. Really fun stuff. And then finally, the last color in the water is going to be a light, kind of a pale blue, kind of like what we used in our clouds. So for that, again, I'll give it a good rinse on the bottom of that cup. Good rinse. And I will mix blue and white. So get a scoop of white, a scoop of your blue, and we'll stir those guys together. And this time it can be a very light blue. It doesn't have to be very dark. Scoop of white, scoop of blue, mix them up, and make like a medium sky blue there. A little medium sky blue. So this part's really fun. What we're gonna do is add a little bit of shape to the base of those mountains. So if you look at the bottom of the mountains here, you can see there's little ripples where the base of the mountain is dipping down into the water. You know, as that water is crashing against the edges of those rocks, you can kind of see it, and it's, you know, giving that little ripple. Notice these are not straight lines. Some are further down, some come up higher. So they're kind of choppy like that. So here's how they go. They're like very, very, very shallow, happy faces. So watch me. I'll show you. So what you're doing is you're going to go to the base of those mountains here, and you're going to pull little ripples. Some can come further down, leave little gaps. Some can be a little further up here. You want to kind of feel the base of those, dipping down into that water a little bit. And that's going to show the edge of those rocks there. So that's how it looks on mine. I did it on the big mountain. Now I'm going to do it on the one next to it there. Leaving little gaps as I go. Little gaps. Feel those little ripples just kind of crashing against the edge of those rocks a little bit. You can use those sound effects as needed. And there we go. You can see how those little ripples really help it feel like it's dipping into the water. And then when you get those little ripples, add a few random blue ripples in the corners. Not a lot, but a few. Again, just to break up the space. So both of the corners on the right and left, I'm going to put a few little blue ripples, but not a lot because we want the middle of the water to be the brightest. And that just kind of completes all those cool little water highlights. Again, as you have questions, let me know. Let me know in the comments. All right. I'm going to show you all this up close so you can see all my highlights in the water there. So see, the corners have blue and pinks. The middle of the water is mostly white, yellow, and oranges, peach. And that's the water highlights. That's one of my favorite parts, those highlights. You can see how they just make such a huge difference on our painting. They really make it pop. After highlights, we don't have much left. I do apologize. I see it is 8 o'clock. I'm going to give us, oh, those are looking great. Very nice. Those of you holding them up, I can see them. They're looking sweet. Beautiful. Very nice. I like that. I'm seeing some very Van Gogh style brushstrokes in some of those. Very cool. I love that style. Looking good, y'all. Looking nice looking mountains. I like that texture. Beautiful. Awesome, y'all. Excellent. Very nice, man. That's looking great. You got an awesome beard as well. I'm jealous. Yes. Oh, I like the heart. That's cute. Very nice. Mountains too. Beautiful. Very awesome, y'all. Okay, I know it's 8 o'clock, but I want to show you the last little touch. Ooh, nice. Beautiful. That looks fantastic. Great highlights. So I want to show you the last little touch. We just want a little sparkle in the sky. So the final step on our painting tonight is the stars in the sky. This is going to give our sky that last little pop that it needs. So here's how you add stars to your sky. Easiest step ever. I love it. We will use actually the back of your brush. So don't use the bristles. You want to rinse off those bristles so you don't accidentally paint yourself. And we're going to use the butt of the brush. We're going to dunk the back of our brush in white. So the back of your brush. And you're going to dot little stars in your sky. Here's the hardest thing when you make stars, is not putting them all in perfect rows and making a grid pattern on your sky. So to keep it from looking too perfect, you want to do clusters of odd numbers and make some closer, some more spaced out. So I'm going to start dotting with the back of my brush like a stamp. There's like a little cluster of 3, and then I'll be like maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can see I'm spacing them really weird. So odd numbered clusters. So odd numbers, maybe there's just one little star by himself every once in a while. So really weird little clusters of odd numbers, just wherever you want it. It's going to give that sky a little pop, a little something, a little more sparkle. That's what we want. And if you want to add a little shooting star, I'm going to show you how to add a shooting star after we get our main little stars on here. So little odd numbers there, wherever you want it. Those stars live wherever you say they live. Wherever you say they live. Just the back of the brush, just stamping little dots. Anywhere you want them. Now, this painting has 2 shooting stars. Practice on your extra plate, that kind of thing. So if you want a little shooting star, there's one on the right side of the example painting. what they did was they went above this cloud, they put a little dot, and it needs to be kind of thick with paint. And then you take this little dot here, and you take your finger, and you go to that wet paint, and you drag it, whoosh, and you pull a little line, whoosh, make sound effects to the right. And it creates this cool little shooting star effect. And you can come back and even take more paint and put a brighter dot back in the middle of it to make it feel like it's got a little piece in the middle there that's flying. So you make a dot and you pull a little line, whoosh, and then that makes this fun little shooting star. If you want it, you don't have to have it. The other little optional step is our sparkly star. It's very similar. It's behind the cloud over here. So I could put a little dot, the back of my brush, and then you could actually use the bristles or your fingers, but you take that, you don't want any paint on the brush. You can come to this little dot and just go whoosh, and pull a little line, whoosh, coming out, whoosh, whoosh, like a little plus sign, and it can make a little sparkle in the sky like that. So same thing with this comet. You could use a clean brush and just pull a little line coming off of it as well. And that also works good. So, whatever you want. But once you get your final little touches on your paintings, you better give yourselves a hand for successfully completing a painting tonight. Woo! So nice job, y'all. I'm going to hang out for a few more minutes. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, when you complete your painting, don't be afraid to sign those beauties to make it official. I usually sign in the corner with my initials, so I'll put a little TD for Tyler, the Paint Doctor. Just kidding. My last name actually does start with a D. It's Dixon, D-I-X-O-N. If you ever want to see my personal paintings that I like to do on the side and check out my art, definitely check it out. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. All you got to do is search for Tyler, T-Y-L-E-R, Dixon, D-I-X-O-N, Murals, M-U-R-A-L-S. So if you ever want to check out my art, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Otherwise, I would love to see pictures of your paintings you painted with us tonight. So if you post them on our wall, tag me. If you had a good time painting with me tonight, give me a little shout out on Facebook or Google. Let me know how I did. Otherwise, my name's Bert, and I was definitely not here at all. No, but thank y'all so much for painting with us tonight. I really enjoyed painting this picture with y'all tonight, and I really look forward to seeing y'all in my next class. I hope you're painting with me again. We'll be doing these virtual classes until we're able to open again, so we'll be doing these every Thursday and Saturday for now. And we also have those take-it-home kits, so check that out. And again, oh, thank you for saying great class. I appreciate that, Jill. Thank you so much. And like I said, if you do take a picture, share it with us. We'd love to see it. You just tag us at Twist Colorado Springs. It's up here, Twist Colorado Springs, on Instagram or Facebook. And you can also hashtag Twist at Home to share your experience tonight. But otherwise, thank you all so much. I really had a blast painting with y'all, and I hope you're at my next class. I'm gonna hang out for a minute, but if you are all done, you can log out as needed. I'll hang out for a few minutes for anyone that has questions. But thank you all so much for painting with Tyler the Paint Doctor. Y'all were fantastic. And we got lots of cool paintings coming up, so check out that calendar. And I'll stay on for just a few more minutes for anyone that needs help. Or if you just want to say, that was awesome. I love that too. Oh, beautiful. Thank you for showing me. Oh, that's really cool. You did a great job. I love that. Very nice. Man, y'all made me look good tonight. Y'all made me look real good. Very cool. I'm so glad we get to do this from home together. This is awesome. Very good. I'm going to hang out for one more minute. Oh, yeah, the hashtag. It was Twist at Home. I'm going to type it for you. Twist at Home. Or you can find us at Twist Colorado Springs. Hope that helps. Oh, and if you're looking for me, anybody, I'll add that. Why not? Let's go for it. There we go. There's all the links for everyone. Awesome. All right, y'all, it's about 8:10, so I'm going to sign off for the evening. But y'all keep moving and grooving if you're adding those final little details. Thanks again for painting with me. If you have a question, let me know. But otherwise, I am going to head out. But thanks again, everyone. Y'all are fantastic. Have a great night and give yourselves a hand. See you later, my twisters. I'll see you next time.